r/AskReddit. People of Reddit who work in a casino, what's some of the saddest moments you witnessed? I worked at a casino as a dealer through college. A lot of incidents were pretty sad, especially with regulars that you liked. One regular would tell me about his middle school age kids, and then I would realize the next week or so later that he was missing their school plays/recitals etc. because he was at the tables. I remember working an overnight one Christmas Eve and begging him to go home when 6/7 am rolled around because his kids would be up and opening presents. Other times just people screaming at you for stealing their mortgage payments from them that month. Then seeing them back again the next day. Geez, that's really depressing. Are you allowed to encourage people to leave the tables, or are you told not to do that? It's a really murky area for sure. This was in the UKC 2002 to 2006. During training, we were told we could offer leaflets about gambling addiction to customers we thought had a problem, but that it was a delicate issue best left to pit bosses and managers who were also on the floor. One time a guy who was always on the machines asked me for help and I showed him the materials we had, and then he got really angry with me for suggesting he had a problem, so I didn't try that again. The Christmas Day guy though, I begged him to leave, not as a dealer in a casino but as a person who'd had an absentee father during childhood. He just wouldn't. Wow, that must be so hard to witness, and I feel like it happens more than I'd think. During my 8-hour shift a gentleman won $15,000 on a slot machine. Punched out at end of shift and had the next 2 days off. Returned to work after my weekend to find the man still sitting at the same slot machine. He had been there for 2+ days losing $15,000. If you win that much money, pretty much have the mentality in which you will never win this much again. I live next to Atlantic City and when I'm up like $50 I walk out of the casino and play in the ocean for a few hours. I always feel as if the casino paid me to have a fun beach day. Yup. 5 figures, recently and got the fuck out of there as soon as they handed me the check. Best decision I ever made. I do something like this. I only ever enter the casino with $270 in cash on me and leave my wallet, besides ID, in the car. If I double up, I'll go put that money back in the car and go back inside and play until that money is either gone or I hit an amount I'm comfortable with walking away. If I lose the second $270, well I broke even. If I lose the first $270, I just leave. Takes some mental fortitude to do but is the only way I'll gamble at the table anymore. We used to have a woman who would be on the blackjack tables for 5 days/nights straight. Her husband would call and tell her that her kids wanted her home. Her boss actually came to the casino to try and get her to leave. She was missing work. I don't know what happened to her but she's probably ruined her life. We also had a few regulars commit suicide and a few go to jail. How did she still have a job if she was regularly missing weeks of work though? A very kind, sympathetic boss. The kind of boss that visits you in the casino to get you to come back. I'm late here so this probably won't get seen but people with gambling addictions really need to get help. I witnessed firsthand some tragic shit at the casino. I worked valet at a casino and brought down one of the regulars' truck. He seemed his usual self, handed me 5 and said have a good day. As I'm walking off I hear a clap, kinda sounded like someone dropped something really heavy. Turned around and didn't see anything so oh well. Went and brought down the next car and realized dude's truck is still there. I pull up next to it and his head is laid back with blood all over the side window. To make matters worse, right about that time his daughter, probably in her early 20s, comes out screaming and falling on the ground because she saw her dad shot himself. Then the BF or bother, not sure, came out and was trying to lift her off the ground because she looked like she was about to faint. The whole situation was just so tragic. I can seriously still her scream saying no dad, no. Makes my eyes water just thinking about it. The casino offered free counseling to us that were there, and I talked to someone a couple times. It was hard to take all that in. Edit. Rumor was that he obviously went in and lost a shit ton, so he went out in his truck and ended it. It's been about 15 years, but I worked in one for about 4 years. The one that stands out was a woman who came from the country to the big city to get Xmas gifts for the whole family, including young kids who still believed in Santa and all of that, but spent all of the Christmas money at the casino before going to the mall. Also, a few years later I went back to visit, and when talking to one of the pit bosses about who was still there and whatnot, she told me one of my old regulars, who was actually nice and likable, a rare trait in that business, had recently committed suicide as a result of gambling too much. Addiction is a horrible disease. Are behavioral addictions classified as diseases? I know some substance abuses are, but when an addiction can be halted by not going to the casino, seems like it's a little drastic to call it a disease. Many people are addicted to Reddit, to Fortnite, to porn. Are they diseased? Now if we're talking about opioid addiction, where just stopping cold turkey can have serious physiological effects, I can see that being called an addiction. Edit. Some really great replies here. Thanks to most everyone for have a well-spoken discussion. I learned a bunch from this. Impulse control disorders are in the process of being assimilated into the addiction medicine sphere. A lot of these are the things you might call behavioral addictions. Internet gaming disorder is a condition for further study in the latest psychiatric manual, the DSM-5. Internet-based gambling is not included, because gambling disorder is already officially in there. Sexual addiction also gets a mention. The important message is that you don't need to have physiological withdrawal to be addicted to something. It's all dopamine and glutamate, baby, and if it fucks your life up, it'll end up in the DSM. Current best practice treatment is good old CBT, the psychological framework, not the genital trauma, but anti-craving meds like naltrexone have shown some limited effect. Former valet at a casino. The amount of daily regulars who drove barely functioning vehicles full of trash, roaches, and rats who would actually valet their car and go gamble away any money they had to their name was honestly depressing. The saddest I remember was a 90-plus-year-old lady who drove a 91 Corolla, and when we got in her car we realized she had no power steering fluid at all and her steering wheel would barely turn. I have no earthly idea how her frail arms could turn it. We went and bought her some before she left that evening. That was really nice of you to do. Until the 90-year-old woman jerks herself into the next lane. Going from no power steering fluid to having it is a crazy change. It's like that office prank with the pennies in the phone. This is what I was thinking. I've driven a car with like no power steering fluid. I imagine she'd find out when she immediately hit a vehicle in the parking lot though. My mom works as a dealer at a casino and has told me multiple stories of grown men wearing adult diapers at the table so they don't have to leave to use the restroom. I can't even imagine how shitty it must feel to walk back to your room in a fully loaded diaper after losing over 5K. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Now imagine the smell. I'd imagine they're feeling pretty pissed. Honestly, at that point, you need some serious help if you don't think shitting yourself while gambling is a problem. Good Lord. It's one of the clear signs of addiction, to any behavior really, like video games, watching TV, etc. I stopped wearing diapers the day I got my Switch. In general, people who come for the first time and are super nice and friendly, they don't care about winning or losing much, just came to have fun. They come back a few more times, then after a few years they're regulars that don't smile anymore, they don't laugh, they don't count their wins, just their losses, and sweat every comp point they earn and act like gambling is their job now and the focus of their life. I've seen more than one person have this happen to them. The other saddest thing is when a regular stops coming in and their spouse comes out and tells us they passed. We're almost family with some of our regulars and it hurts to get that news. My favorite regulars were this sweet little old couple. they'd come in a couple times a week, and unlike a lot of regulars they just came to have fun for a few hours, they didn't spend much and were happy whether they won or lost. If I was there they'd always specifically come to me, they really did feel like family. About a year ago they just stopped coming, I have no way of knowing why. I really do miss them and hope they're okay. They hit the jackpot and are traveling now. One can only hope. They moved to a nice casino farm down south. We had to evacuate and close down for the rest of the day due to a burst pipe causing no running water. When I walked outside there was an elderly lady throwing a legit tantrum in the parking lot. She was on the ground kicking and screaming. Her screams sounded like something you'd expect from someone who'd just lost a family member, not someone who had to leave the casino for a few hours. I left, but some of the security who were dealing with her told me later she was too upset to drive home and they had to call a family member to pick her up. I've seen some shit, a lot of what others have commented is fairly common, but this was definitely the most messed up. Sheesh. It's literally an addict in withdrawal. I don't work in a casino, but live near Atlantic City. Seeing unattended children playing near the entrance to the casino floor where children aren't allowed. You brought your kids to a casino where kids aren't allowed, and just left them in a hallway. I went to a casino for the first time a few years ago with a group for my mother-in-law's birthday. There were signs everywhere stating that it is a crime to leave children unattended in your car in the parking lot. Pretty fucking sad. Sadder when you think about how many times it had to happen before they put up a sign. And probably still happens. I can attest, it still happens. Pets too. Grandmother, mother, and daughter heading to the casino by car from 2 hours away. Mother had a postcard to get a free cast iron pan for showing up. Daughter is more than 8 months pregnant. 1 hour away from the casino, daughter starts to have labor pains. Mother won't stop and take her to the hospital, she's gotta have that $10 pan. They arrive at the casino an hour before the promotion was going to start. Mother raises all hell trying to get her pan, but the workers for the promo haven't arrived yet. Daughter ends up having to be transported by ambulance to the hospital. All over a $10 pan. Did she ever get the pen? I'm not sure, but I imagine there was pandemonium. Stop pandering to the pun lovers here. Worked in a casino for about 7 years, and the one that has always stuck with me was when a kid, 18/19, came with his friends and lost $100 playing blackjack. Then he was sitting there, looking dejected and watching his friends win. He left and came back with another $100. I could tell from the way he was acting he probably didn't have the original $100 to lose, so he definitely couldn't afford to lose another $100, so I asked if he was sure he wanted to play. He nodded his head and solemnly said yes. Unfortunately he lost that money too. 200 is a lot better than what I've read so far. Hopefully he learned something that day. I lost $40 in 5 minutes on my 18th birthday. Haven't been back to a casino since. I don't understand the draw. Edit, rip my inbox. I won $185 at my 18th birthday and developed a slight gambling addiction. I sure would have preferred to lose my original bet. Spent $35 to win $100 on my 18th, haven't been back. I consider it $65 I've taken from an industry that probably deserves to lose $65. A previous boss of mine worked at a casino in AC. He said he saw all kinds of terrible things, but the worst was when they had to close the main lobby cause a guy jumped from the 4th floor after losing. Jesus, how much did he lose? His balance for sure. I didn't want to laugh. But I did. A woman approximately mid-30s dancing her ass off on the dance floor of the nightclub, and suddenly dropped dead. I watched her die. Or the time a VIP booth was packed, drinks flowing. Everybody picking on the guy that passed out. End of night comes and they tell us he is going to need a wheelchair, not uncommon. Guy was dead a good hour. The deaths always bug me. Casinos get a treatment similar to airports. The unspoken rule is to treat them as if alive until they get off the premises. Even if they are an hour dead. The goal is to get them out as quickly as possible without freaking out the patrons. New Year's was always stressful. It was never a question if someone would die that night. It was a question of how many. A good year would be one. One year we had 4. The unspoken rule is to treat them as if alive until they get off the premises. Fun fact, similarly, no one ever officially dies at Disney World. That's because of what is needed these days to declare somebody dead, unless they have an injury incompatible with life, like decapitation or expelled brain matter. I work for an airline and I can tell you from experience they don't give a crap where a dead person is declared dead so long as it's done in a proper manner. I did casino security for 3 years before I became a police officer. Had a code M, medical, early one morning, around 4 or 5 a.m. Old guy in his 80s passed out and fell out of his chair, wife sitting next to him. I was the first to get to him, did a quick assessment and found he didn't have a pulse, immediately started CPR. The old lady looked over and said, "Oh, he does this all the time, don't worry about him." Between chest compressions, I told her he wasn't breathing and she just kept playing her a lot machine. She didn't miss a spin even when the paramedics took him away. I saw her again the next night and asked how he was doing. With the straightest face ever, she said, "Oh, he never woke up. I'm sure he's in a freezer by now," and went right back to the same machine she was playing the night before. This is the worst one yet, and I've been through that whole thread. That reaction sounds like 20% gambling addiction and 80% bad half-century of marriage. Not a casino worker, but I know of a guy who sold his car to a loan shark/pimp after losing $80,000 in 2 days. He even went to the DMV and transferred the title to a prostitute. Then when he got out of his fog, he used his spare key and found the car. He took it. He was pulled over for driving a stolen vehicle. Not sure how his court case went. Wow. Talk about your dangerous liaisons. So he went and took back his car after he legally sold it? The fuck was going through his mind? Maybe he owed money to another, scarier pimp. I wasn't a casino employee, but I was an EMT in a certain beach town on the East Coast that could be described as bargain bin Vegas. On a given shift we would probably field 3 or 4 casino calls, more in the summer. It was pretty soul-crushing. Most calls were alcohol-related or obvious slip and fall scams, but occasionally we would happen upon some real tragedies. Suicide attempts, ODs, rapes, assaults happened with depressing frequency. This one sticks with me the most though. One day we had a call for a woman in her 70s sitting at the slots experiencing chest pain around 2 a.m. She refused treatment despite being in bad shape. We pleaded and begged, and even had the on-call cardiologist talk to her on the phone, but she was on a streak and wouldn't hear it. An hour later we were back doing CPR, she died right there in front of the same slot machine, with a receipt for $7 in winnings. Super fucked. The amount of employees we had to treat for exhaustion or diabetic-related emergencies due to them not having enough breaks to manage their blood sugars was also super fucked. Fuck that town. The most depressing shifts I ever did as a medic were when I had the casino shift. I only covered it a few times, but, damn was it depressing getting there at the start of my shift and seeing people lined up in the morning just waiting for the doors to open.